Are you considering buying an Apple Watch Ultra 2? I've tested several Apple Watches over the years, including the Ultra, and I find that one of the biggest mistakes that people tend to make when choosing between them is comparing specs and the price. Having used these extensively, in this video, I won't simply throw tech jargon and numbers at you, but instead I'll tell you what they mean for you and your hard-earned money. I'm Akshay and let's get into it. First, here's the summary. The Ultra 2 is Apple's flagship premium smartwatch, which is an upgrade over last year's Ultra with a brighter screen, which is now at 3000 nits of brightness, new straps including the Sport and Trail loop that look pretty much the same as the last year, and a new strap that Apple replaced its leather series with a woven material. Now that's what's changed if you own an Ultra 1. But if you own a non-Ultra Apple Watch, it's going to feel like a whole new world. It's simply a different experience to use an Ultra, and I would say that it's in a class by itself. So let's answer two questions. If you have an Ultra 1, should you upgrade? And if you have any other watch, should you buy an Ultra? The answers are no, this isn't a massive upgrade over the Ultra 1, but yes, this is definitely the best Apple Watch you can buy if it fits in your budget. In fact, even though it's priced at double the Series 9, I'm going to try and prove to you that it actually kind of costs the same as the Series 9. I know that sounds confusing, but by the end of the video, you'll get exactly what I mean. So let's quickly talk about what you get if you upgrade from the Watch Ultra 1. There's three things. First is simply the extra brightness at 3000 nits versus the 2200 on the Watch Ultra 1, which is definitely a lot more on paper, but it's important to understand that 2200 is already more than enough to see that watch in bright, direct sunlight, so it doesn't make that much of a difference. Except maybe as a flashlight when you're trying not to fall over someone at the cinema. The second upgrade is to the S9 chip, which is faster than the previous generation, but there's literally no discernible way to tell that it's faster for the everyday user. Now, if you use Siri a lot on your watch, then the Siri processing now happens on board, meaning that if your Wi-Fi is slow, it won't take forever for Siri to answer. Finally, it's made from 95% recycled titanium, which is nice, and also now starts with 64 gigs of capacity versus the 32 gigs you got on the last model. That's kind of it. And these are barely upgrades. So if you own an Apple Watch Ultra, then there really isn't much reason to upgrade to the Ultra 2. Even the design is identical. There's no way to tell these two apart. But the more important question is, should you buy this if you don't have an Ultra? If you're upgrading from the Apple Watch Series 8 or earlier, or even buying your first Apple Watch, if that's the case, then I think you should buy the Apple Watch Ultra for 5 reasons. And no, they're not just tech specs or user experience. These include two very surprising things that I discovered which totally blew my mind. Let's go one by one. First is the larger screen. Unlike other Apple Watches where if your fingers are even slightly thick or tubby, you basically can't use the on-screen keyboard in any meaningful way. But the Apple Watch Ultra is finally the right way to use the screen properly. It's amazing. I regularly find myself replying to WhatsApps, text messages, even emails, especially when the reply is a few words. I can also have a watch face with a lot of information that's actually readable and useful, like my Wayfarer watch face from the Ultra 1, which is still my favorite, which not only tells me the time, but has a compass for when I hike, tells me the weather, tells me my activity status ring, and the time in 4 different time zones, which I tend to work with every day. And before you say it, no, it's not too big. It looks big when you see it, especially if you're used to a smaller watch, but you get used to it very, very quickly, and it's super lightweight since it's built from titanium. And I promise you that once you use it, you can't imagine going back to a smaller watch. This is the right size for a smartwatch that drives productivity. Second, it's rugged and almost impossible to scratch. I've taken this baby hiking, swimming, running, to the gym, and many camping trips. It's hit many things on the way, but it looks brand new. It comes with a handy action button, which is useful to do things when you don't want to stop and fiddle around with your screen, like starting or stopping a workout whilst you're running, adding waypoints on your map. It also has neat outdoorsy features like a dive computer, a GPS trackback feature, but these are really useful to only the few users who specifically dive a lot or go on hikes very regularly and get lost all the time. For most of us, these are nice talking points when you just buy the watch and maybe you use them once or twice. but pretty soon you forget they're there. Third, and probably the most important, the battery life is insane, and that's what makes the cost of this watch so much lower than what you actually pay. And here's why. The battery life of this watch is almost double the typical Series 9 that you can buy for half the price. So with double the battery, you don't need to charge it every night. You can charge it every other night at most. So you charge it half the number of times that you would a Series 9. Now, as all of you know, the battery life degradation is nowadays the biggest reason that people upgrade anyway. So even though you pay twice for your Ultra, if you have to charge it half as much, the life that battery will give you will be more than double. Instead of the 2 years that you'll probably be able to use a Series 9 before it already starts to run out of battery before the end of the day and you start thinking about upgrading to the next one, you can probably use the Ultra for 3 or 4 years with great all-day battery. So in effect, the price you pay for the Ultra gets you 4 years of use and not the 2 you might get on the Series 9. So it basically means that if you pay the 800 pounds or dollars or euros for the Ultra 2, which comes to about 200 per year if you use it for 4 years, you'll find that that's the same as the Series 9, which is priced at 400 pounds or euros or dollars, but only gives you 2 years. So it costs you the same 200 per year. This maths works out the same in other countries like India, where the Ultra 2 is almost 90,000 rupees and the Series 9 is at about 42,000. And finally, no one's going to put this on a spec sheet, but it looks amazing. In fact, I encourage you to think of this not only as a tech purchase, but as a fashion tech purchase. And the reason is that while your iPhone or your iPad or your computer stays firmly tucked into your pocket or your bag, the watch is always on your wrist and it's a part of your look. And man, this does look good with its brushed titanium that Apple calls silver, but when you pick it up you realize it's got a bit of grey and teal in there to class it up, and you can pair it with different types of bands to give you different looks. So as you can tell, I'm a fan and I don't recommend all products this wholeheartedly. I strongly recommend you give it a go if you're considering an Apple Watch. And by the way, I've taken this watch recently on a hike to the beautiful Italian Dolomites. Oh, and I've also recently reviewed the AirPods Pro Gen 2s as an upgrade over the Gen 1, which seems like a minor upgrade, but it's like a whole new world. Don't believe me? Watch the full videos right here. See you there.